Okay, AP class. I have a cheat sheet, my lesson plans. Sorry if you see me looking down at this. Today is a day where we're going to talk about sort of how the class is going to go a little bit more. I'm going to probably repeat myself. I apologize for that. And then we're going to talk about writing themes. I wish you were here for this. This is one of those where, again, it'd be a lot easier if we were doing this together. I'm going to go with the camera on again. It feels like you should see your teacher, but I think eventually I'm going to transition to you seeing screens. But right now I don't have tons to share with you, only one thing. So let me go over a few things. Hopefully by now all of you have done the pre-test or SLO. It doesn't matter what you call it. And there was no pressure on you to do well on it. I'm currently recording this at 12 o'clock on Wednesday. You're hopefully seeing this Thursday. I only had one in so far. I certainly won't say whose it is. That's private. But the one that was in, it was a 23%, 16 out of 70. So that might have been knowing that it didn't count, so they really flipped through the questions. I don't know. It might have been them trying in earnest. I told you it would be tough. The good news is you're going to have a real good handle on this material by the end of the year. So have no worries. What we're going to do with the live sessions, I'll remind you, will be reinforcement. So I do want to, though, give you this comfort that, remember, if you need something, I'm not just around during the 2 live sessions. I can talk to you or a parent through a Zoom where maybe it's just you or your parents and or I can call a parent or you using, star 67 on my phone, and I'll just call from here. During reasonable hours, we could set something up. So I don't want you to stress about that. Okay, so I think I covered this yesterday, but I'm going to back up this one again. Every unit is going to have 100 points. There's a rare case occasionally where there's 105 because I do like 2 pop quizzes, but generally speaking, 99% of the time, there'll be 100 points. There'll be a 65-point test, there'll be a 30-point essay, and there'll be a 5-point pop quiz. That's what's going to happen every single unit. And then when the quarter ends, I will end at the completion of a unit, no matter where we are. So in other words, if the quarter ends and I have the essay but not the next test, I'll just put that on the next unit. I want you to have a nice round 500 or 600 points. And by the way, that's pretty typical for a quarter, to have 500 or 600 points. And that's pretty typical through first, second, and third quarter. Fourth quarter sometimes is a little bit less because we're doing some AP review. And that quarter actually ends up being the easiest quarter, fourth quarter, because we do so much review, and I think there's 2 take-home tests that unit, or excuse me, that quarter. I think statistically the third quarter has been the toughest. So just so you have that sort of idea. The other thing is the very first day of a unit can be overwhelming, and tomorrow is the first day of a unit. And I wanted to give you this heads up so you weren't stressed about it. Because of the way the class is formatted, before you understand sort of the rhythm of it, it can be overwhelming on that first day, because that first day of a unit, I would normally be going over the last test. We don't have one to go over. I'll then be giving you an essay. That's how the unit always starts. Hey, this is what this next unit's going to be about, and here's your essay. And when you get that essay, I'm going to be totally upfront with you. This essay will not make any sense. It's not supposed to. It hardly ever makes sense at the beginning of a unit, because I'm saying, hey, by the end of this unit, because that's when it's going to be due, the second to the last day of the unit. Hey, by the end of this unit, you're going to need to be able to answer these questions. By the very nature of how that's set up, when I assign the essay to you, you won't understand it. You won't know what you're writing about. So it's very overwhelming. You're like, oh my gosh, I've never heard of any of this stuff. Right. It's my job to teach you that stuff in time to be able to write that essay. So generally speaking, each unit is 2 chapters. I try to make the essay more of that first chapter focus. So about halfway through the unit, and again, most units are about 8 days. This first one's a little faster, but about halfway through the unit, you have all the material. And I usually even say something like, hey, you're good to write your essay now. And then you can work on that essay the last few days. That can throw some people off until you get used to the idea and trust that, hey, I will teach you this stuff. But again, don't panic. You're not supposed to write the essay first day. Some of you are such good students, and I mean this is a compliment, that you're like, oh, I better get going on this right away. Not an essay. You're spinning your own wheels to work on an essay the first day in an AP unit. most of the time, at least in my class, because you haven't been taught the material yet. You weren't even supposed to have read the material yet. So what makes this unit worse is one time per quarter, I give a take-home test. Now, normally when I give a take-home test, you have an in-class timed essay. I just flip those two. In this case, I'm not doing that to you the first unit. So you have a take-home test and an essay. So the good news is this first 100 points should be pretty good. Usually these are better than the second 100 drop off, and then the third 100 kind of level off to where you'll probably be. But it's going to be overwhelming because on Friday, I'm going to release to you an essay, a study guide, a take-home test, and you're going to have all this stuff. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to make it. Just remember, I'm not giving you anything else the rest of the unit. There's no like surprise essay coming in the middle of it. There's no extra, there's one thing, a 5-point pop quiz, worth literally 5% of your grade. And that's just, if you're keeping up on your reading, you'll be fine. So that first day is always overwhelming. Friday is going to be overwhelming. Don't stress about it. You're just going to be getting all this material. And as we proceed through next week, that material will make more and more sense. So please don't stress about it. I can't emphasize that enough. Now, today, what we're going to talk about before you get your first essay is writing. Writing is incredibly important in AP. Writing is, generally speaking, where my classes have done better than the average. My kids, over the years, have done better in some areas and about the same as the average in a lot of areas on the multiple choice. There's a lot of standards. The multiple choice questions are tough, but if you know your history, you know this. But our kids have scored well above the writing average for AP US history, and I think it's because because it only makes sense to me, give you practice examples of the types of writing prompts they give you. When I went over the rubric, the syllabus, I told you there are different types of essays, and I'm going to ease you into these types of essays. But some teachers, I met them at conferences, just give sort of one type of essay because that's what they're comfortable grading. So their kids are really good at those and not the other styles or other types. So we're going to ease you into writing in this class, and the first style of essay prompt that you could get that I'm going to present to you is going to be the easiest one. But and then soon we'll go share screen so you don't have to stare at me anymore. But there's two major themes that I want you to have by the end of the second unit. So we're just in unit 1. We're only going to work on one of these themes. This unit, we're going to work on the writing theme of backing up your ideas with evidence. Anytime you make an assertion, a statement, you want to back it up with evidence, if at all possible. That's what we're focusing on this unit. That's it. That's the main focus. You have an essay, and it's pretty straightforward, except for the idea that you have to get used to backing up your ideas with assertions. And I'll get into that in a little bit. For the next unit, not this unit, for the next unit, unit 2, which is chapters 3 and 4, that unit's going to be much more based on having a good thesis. That unit essay is harder, but it's probably more of what you expect. Oh, I'm going to have a thesis and an intro, and I'm going to have this many body paragraphs, I'm going to have a conclusion. That's the next essay. For this essay, again, we're going to focus on backing up any ideas you have with facts, with data. Now, trust me when I tell you, in the next unit, your essay has to be backed up with facts and data. It just also has to have a thesis. I'm easing you into it. So don't think, oh, this is the only one where you have to have facts and data. All of your essays have to have facts and data. But in the short answer format, you don't have to have a thesis. In a regular paragraph prompt where I have all these questions, you do have to have a thesis. Hope that makes sense, but let's take a look. I worked way too hard this morning on coming up with a fake essay example for you. Normally, I would just do what I'm about to show you out loud, but I had to put it down in writing. And what I literally did is I opened up the essay I'm giving you on Friday, and I mimicked the style of questions for this fake prompt that I'm giving you to teach you sort of how you would go about answering this. So you may want to go back and watch this little part after you see your real prompt tomorrow. It's up to you. But I put way too much thought into making a fake prompt to sort of go through the format, okay? So let me share screen with you. page, as if you have something to do with that. Okay, share screen. Where do I find my screen? There we go. Don't you love hearing me think things out loud? Okay, so I made this fake prompt, and hopefully you can see this well enough. You know what? Maybe I can make it even bigger. Maybe. Maybe not. Okay. And first off, you're going to notice on short answer essays, we'll have one of these per quarter, that these are a little bit more cut and dry. There's no thesis required. And generally speaking, a sentence or two, maybe 3 sentences for the toughest question, will answer the question. They do need to be in complete sentences, but there's no thesis required. So you can literally attach a document that you create, a Google Doc you create, and you can say 1A and write out 2 sentences, 1B and write out a sentence or 2 sentences, 2A and then write out your sentence. That's literally how you can answer it. Whereas a traditional essay, you wouldn't do that at all. You would have thesis and body paragraphs and then a conclusion. On this format essay, which is what you're going to get tomorrow, except history-based, not goofy-based, you're going to get questions like this and you're going to answer like this. And I bet you can figure it out that most of them are worth on the 9-point scale 1 point. And so I would tell you, oh, hey, this is 1A is worth 1 point. Now 1B, because I based it on the real essay I'm giving you tomorrow, it's worth 2 points. So you're going to have to go into a little bit more detail. 3A is 1 point, 3B is 1 point, 3C is 1 point. So if you skip 3C, you can only get an 8 out of 9 in the essay, which is a 27 out of 30. And my weird conversion, don't worry about it. Okay, so let's talk about what these questions look like then. So you get the first question. Cedar Point is an incredibly popular amusement park. It's actually a statement. A, what would be its main claim to fame? So here's where we have to get you used to proving assertions. I'm afraid that a lot of students, when they first come into AP, would go, oh, it's claim to fame. It's got really cool rides. What I'll say to that is I'll give you half credit and say, like what? Or prove it. Now, really, prove it is tough in this particular case, but remember, I'm asking you a ridiculous question. But we go to, hopefully you can still see what I'm sharing. Hopefully. And you see that I've Googled how many roller coasters are there at Cedar Point. Cedar Point, how many roller coasters? Why I worded it that way, I don't know. All right, cautionary tale number 1. If you look right here, it goes, oh, 17 roller coasters, Cedar Point Wikipedia. Okay, you have to cite anything that you look up. And I'm gonna just be real clear with you. Anything that you look up and you use Wikipedia for doesn't count. If you use Wikipedia as your source, you might as well be saying, my uncle's cousins, friends, nieces, nephews, best friends said. I don't care. It's not reliable to me. I will remind you, for those of you who have not had me before, or for those of you who've forgotten, according to Wikipedia, I founded like some union in 1890, like 90 years before I was born. So it's not exactly reliable. Sometimes it can be. So what you actually want to do is find a real source. And so it's funny, somewhere in here under this, it says something along the lines of actually look it up. How many, oh, there it is. Search for how many roller coasters does Cedar Point have? And the first real source, which is Cedar Point, has 18. So Wikipedia hasn't been updated anyway. And so instead of saying in your prompt, okay, what would be its main claim to fame? And you'd say it's fun or it has a lot of rides. You would say it has 18 roller coasters. That's its claim to fame. And then cite the website that you had that from. You don't talk in general terms. In history writing, you must back up your assertions. So again, what's its main claim to fame? You can't ever just say, it's really fun. Oh, it's really exciting. I would think most people would say, because it's the roller coaster capital of the world, it's roller coasters. They have 18. And I don't honestly remember if that's the most of anywhere or not, but that's still its main claim to fame. Be sure to back up any assertion you make with a fact whenever you can. Now, sometimes you can't. Sometimes it asks for an opinion, but wherever you can, you back it up with a fact. That's the main theme for this essay. And really, we keep that theme through all of them throughout the rest of the year. And then this would be worth 2 points. Describe its impact on tourism. And so because it's worth 2 points, and I'll let you know, when we go over it the first day, hey, this is going to be worth 2 points because I need a more extensive answer here. You're going to write a few sentences. I haven't thought too hard about this, but you would say something like, oh, it employs this many people. Oh, there are this many hotels in town. Oh, there are this many restaurants. And you describe a little bit. Now, you're not writing a thesis with 5 body paragraphs for this, so don't write too much. It's just a short answer question. On the AP exam, you have a short amount of time to answer short answer questions, but you do have to back it up where you can with facts. Make sense? All right, let's go to a different type. Political cartoon. I am the world's worst artist, so I couldn't even make a fake political cartoon. I had to describe one. Let's say there's a political cartoon of me as some sort of like monster teacher, maybe with like horns or something, and I'm throwing things at students and they like, I'm snarling, okay, at them. All right. Then on top of that political cartoon, there are 2 quotes. Mr. Penrose made me cry once when I asked him about my essay grade. Sadly, that's a true story. I was devastated that I made the nicest girl in the world cry. It didn't change anything. It didn't change the grade, but I felt real bad about it. Okay, so I made this person cry. And then Mr. Penrose wrote me a nice letter of recommendation. So the first question, which quote matches the picture best? So the picture here shows me as some sort of evil monster. So you pick the quote that matches up with that. So this one's real easy for 1 point. You'd say, oh, the quote that matches up with this picture, which I didn't bother to draw you, would be, he made me cry once. It matches up because this picture makes him look pretty evil, and that's a pretty mean thing to do. Makes sense? Provide further evidence to support the idea or theme of the picture. Okay. The theme of the picture is that I'm this monster. I'm this evil teacher that throws things at people and harms them. So then for evidence, Easton says, one time I asked if I could ask a question, and he took the stapler and stapled my arm 5 times. By the way, I just love that this is on the internet and can be shared with the world. So I'm sure Tiernan will cut this up in little video clips and make me sound like a horrible monster. But these are all obviously fake examples. But what further evidence supports? I asked him a question one time and he punched me in the head. That would be pretty good evidence to suggest that I am a monster and that I am a horribly mean teacher. Now, if I actually did something nice for you, one time I dropped my books in the hallway and he picked them up. Even if that's true, don't use that as your evidence because that doesn't support the theme of the picture. That actually makes me sound nice. We can't have that. The theme of the picture is I'm an evil monster. But what do we do with teachers like that? I imagine we at least reprimand them and we probably fire them. So that's, that's pretty straightforward. If you have a monster teacher like this, what do you do with them? He's throwing things, he's stapling kids. Come on. Okay, that makes sense. So you're providing evidence. Mr. Penrose is mean. How do you know it? Because he's really mean. That's not proof. Because he stomped on my foot. I think Elizabeth sat in the front row. So one time I just purposely stomped on Elizabeth's foot. That's mean and that's evidence. Just saying he looks mean, not really evidence. All right, last question. I actually have a chart for this one. And they do like to have charts in these short answer questions. So provide evidence that BG is doing better than UT. You can look behind me and you see the big BG flag and the little UT flag. My youngest chose to go to UT. BG students don't like UT, so let's make fun of UT some. Provide evidence BG is doing better than UT. Well, you really don't know if they are. In this chart, they didn't release the financials or anything like that, but they did release one piece of data here. And the evidence that you can use provided by this document is that, at least in 2005, which is really old data, BGSU had a larger enrollment than the University of Toledo. That's all that you can use this to prove. Provide your own evidence that BG is better. And again, you go through and you go, well, and you provide these facts. You could Google something and probably come up with, honestly, if you looked up engineering, I think UT comes out better than us. But if you look up teaching, I think BG teachers had like a 93% placement rate, at least when I graduated, which was a long time ago. But you'd find some piece of evidence that BG is succeeding in something that UT is not succeeding as much in. And what seems to be the big difference between BG and UT? We get kids to go to BG because it's a better school, and UT is a fake school and not as good. Haha, I hope my kid sees this. So that's the main idea. The whole theory, the whole writing premise of today is make sure you back up your assertions with facts. I got 3 flags back here. Which school is better? If my oldest kid is here, he says Ohio University. And if I say, well, why is it better? And he goes, because that's not evidence. That's not good enough. If he says, because their journalism program has like a 98% placement rate in the real world for jobs, that's evidence. You know, if we say, why is Sandusky High School the best high school in the area? You can't just say, even though I even agree with it, like just because it's great. You say, because we have more AP classes than whatever schools, or because we have this percentage or this average on AP test, or whatever fact you want to use. Maybe you're more sports oriented, but you use facts. You don't just say because. In historical terms, if we say, who's better, this president or this president at passing, or at getting policy pushed through Congress? You can't just go, well, FDR. You have to say, well, FDR in the first 100 days was able to push through however many pieces of legislation. Whatever the historical topic is, you've got to find evidence of that. In this next essay, there's going to be things like, who's more cruel to the natives? Is it the English or the Spanish? It's something like that. And if you just say Spanish are more cruel, but you don't give any examples, then it's not going to be good enough, because there are some examples and they are awful. And by the way, they're not going to all be the same. You know, one student's going to use this example and another student's going to use this one, and that's fine. But you have to use specific examples. That's the whole idea. Once we kind of get a handle on that, then we're going to move into Unit 2 and we'll work on that thesis. But again, we're not dropping this idea of having facts to back up your main ideas. We're adding in a thesis. Short answers on the AP exam don't need a thesis. So our first essay, don't need a thesis. It's a short answer format. Sentence or 2 for each should do the trick. Complete sentences though, facts to back up your assertions. If you look something up, cite it. You guys should know this. Most of you had me for honors history anyway. Do not cite Wikipedia. Wikipedia is garbage. We have a live session tomorrow, and you can ask me any questions about the prompts and things like that, but you're not going to know the material yet about the prompt. You'll have the prompt, and I'll probably go over the rubric specific to the prompt, but you won't know about the Spanish treatment of Native Americans or the English treatment of Native Americans yet. That's some of the stuff that we're going to start talking about. And I'll have a recording tomorrow that might cover, hopefully, some of the first pages of the textbook. And then on Friday, we'll get back into a more regular reading schedule. If you've not done the SLO test yet, or pre-test from Wednesday, get that done. Get that done before. Get that done back in time. Okay? Hopefully this made sense to you. If not, go back and rewatch part of it, especially since I made a fake essay kind of based on your real essay. You might want to go back and watch that after you see the essay get posted tomorrow for Friday's class. Okay? Hope all is well. Remember, reach out to me, save the question for the live session, and we will make sure the questions are answered. See you guys.